Shalom and welcome to Biblical Faith with Sam Peak. We invite you to join us as Sam brings a study in the Torah from the Jewish sages. And now our speaker, Sam Peak.
Let's read Mishnah number 11. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa says, anyone whose fear of sin precedes his wisdom, or is greater, if you will, than his wisdom, okay? They will endure, okay? But anyone whose wisdom, what they know, or think they know, precedes his fear of sin, then his wisdom will not endure. Let's look at what the Maharal says about it. Now, the Maharal is going to equate the fear of sin with the fear of HaShem, okay? And that's all right, because that's so. Because in Kabbalah we use the fear of sin as a very specific thing, I would prefer to say the fear of sin is it's actually a part of what the fear of HaShem is, all right? It's one part of it. Because really, to me, the fear of sin is, as near as I can tell, it is part of the fear of the Lord. But it's specifically, very specifically, what it refers to is when a person finally comes to the level of understanding and closeness to HaShem and their understanding of God's divine providence, all right? In other words, His overseeing of your life and everything else that goes on, is that we finally come to the knowledge and really the wisdom, we acquire it, of exactly what it is that sin does. And just exactly how much sin actually destroys things and messes everything up. And that we become literally guilty of adding to the side of evil in every universe and all of the fallout that comes from that. So you begin to fear it in the sense of you don't want to be guilty of adding to the misery and the suffering of all the universes, because that's literally what you do, okay? Not just to yourself, but to everybody else, every other living thing, not just in this world, but in all the worlds that are above us and within us, all of that. Okay, but it is still, just as the Maharal says, it's part of the fear of God, or the fear of Hashem. Okay, he says, they tell us that Torah studies stay with a person, both this Mishnah and the next one, tell us that Torah studies stay with a person whose study is based on the fear of Hashem, and whose good deeds exceed his knowledge. That's what the next one is going to say. The phrase fear of sin is equivalent to the expression fear of God. The fear referred to, now this is his take on it, and he's drawing out another subtlety that's in it that's very important. The fear referred to is the feeling that arises from the stark recognition that we are utterly dependent upon Hashem for our very existence. I like what the Maharal says, because if we really had the fear of Hashem and we actually knew that we are utterly dependent upon Him for our very existence, would you go out of your way to do something that He told you not to do? You understand what I'm trying to say? That's real. That's extremely high level of the fear of Hashem. So basically, if we take an attitude that it's no big deal, He'll forgive me of it. You know what will happen? It will come measure to measure to you. But what's a miracle, and it shows you His loving kindness and His mercy and everything else, is that He doesn't immediately just rub you out, because He could. And if we really knew that and knew that that was the truth, we would be much more circumspect with Him.
Right.
Okay. Utterly dependent upon Hashem for our very existence. The Mishnah refers, he says, to the wisdom of Torah. Anyone whose fear of sin precedes his wisdom will endure. The wisdom of Torah. And the rabbis show, he says, how wisdom actually depends upon the fear of God. And this is from a passage of the Talmud, of the Gemara in Shabbat 31a. Rava said, at the time when they bring a person in for judgment, meaning in the world to come, They say to him, they ask him these questions. Did you deal faithfully? Did you set times for the study of Torah? Did you occupy yourself with having children? Did you look for salvation? Very interesting questions. Did you engage in depth in the analysis of wisdom? And, well, we won't comment on that. It's a direct reference, actually, to understanding what we think of as the sod level of understanding Kabbalah. That's exactly what that's a reference to. And then they say, did you understand one thing from another? He goes on, even if each one counts, only if the fear of God is his treasure. In other words, each one of these things count only if the fear of God is his treasure, which, by the way, is quoting from Isaiah 33:6. Only if the fear of God is his treasure does it count. In other words, and if not, it does not count, he says. It can be explained by a parable of a man. Do we understand what he's saying? Even if a person said all these things, yes, I did this, yes, I did this, yes, I did that, I dealt faithfully, I set times for study of Torah, I occupied myself with raising a family, I looked for salvation, on and on and on. They only, all those things you did only count if the fear of God, the fear of HaShem is your treasure. And he says it can be explained by a parable of a man who sent someone on an errand saying, take this wheat up to the attic for me. And he took it up. And then he said to him, did you mix some preservative in with it? In other words, something to keep it from rotting? And he said, no. And the first one said, it would have been better if you had not taken it up. Do we understand what they're saying? This is what we were mentioning a while ago. Sometimes it's better not even to touch the Torah if you're going to take it and then come to the point of ridiculing it, or come to the point of then ignoring it, or of throwing it away, or of just passively letting it go by the side. Oh yeah, I studied that Torah back 10 years ago. That's also important because it's a huge phenomenon. It's a huge phenomenon over the past 20 years. I know because I've been involved with teaching Christians for all that time. And so many people became interested in the Torah, and then they found out that they were not in a position of Torah truth, and they immediately gave it up. And even, unfortunately, now have a dim view of it. Right. Even when they say they don't. If you notice, that's the new phenomenon now in many of the Messianic teaching groups. They talk a lot about the Torah, but they never study it. They never actually look at it. They never actually examine what it is saying. They say a lot about it, and they talk a lot about it, but basically they have moved right back to the regular things we were talking that they inherited from the Catholic Church. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Absolutely, but anyway, let's get off that subject. Now, he goes on, he says, the reason behind this is that Torah wisdom is spiritual, while we are physical beings. And hence, the Torah wisdom eludes our clear grasp. That's true, okay? As long as we are stuck in a body in this physical world, this is a constant thing that happens. And what does he say next? We need HaShem to make our comprehension of the Torah possible. And it will endure only if we recognize that dependence upon Him. Okay? And this fact is conveyed by the verse, the beginning of wisdom, or the fear of Hashem is the beginning of wisdom. Do we get that? The rabbis just came and told us Hashem is your teacher. He actually teaches you, but He teaches you by your study of the Torah. He's speaking to you and teaching you, okay? And if you're trying to do it on your own, it eludes your grasp, okay? Or you interpret it your own way. And we need HaShem to make our comprehension of the Torah possible. And that's the only way it will endure with us, if we recognize that we are dependent upon Him to make it clear to us and to bring it to us and to keep it in us. It's very interesting.
Amen.
And it has to do with the fear of HaShem. The fear of HaShem is the beginning of wisdom.
Amen.
Yeah. And here, his final comment here on this Mishnah is, but anyone whose wisdom precedes his fear of sin, his wisdom will not endure. And he says, as a house is firmly established upon its foundation, so the fear of HaShem is the foundation upon which wisdom is firmly set. But if wisdom comes before fear, it is like building a house without a foundation, and such a building will not endure. It will fall down. Yeah. Very interesting. Do we have time for Mishnah number 12?
Yes.
Okay. Mishnah number 12. This is the same Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, okay? He also used to say, now this you're going to say, well, that's saying the same thing. No, it's not. He's a little different. Anyone whose good deeds, now we're not the fear of Hashem, we're good deeds, okay, exceed his wisdom, or are greater than his wisdom will endure. But anyone whose wisdom is greater or exceeds his good deeds, his wisdom will not endure. Now we come to the idea of be a doer of the Torah,
Right.
and not just a hearer. That's what it's saying. It's extremely, and I want us to, now, the Maharal is going to get into all kinds of stuff here, but I want to get across this one thing. This is absolutely key thing. When a Jew, a male Jew, every morning puts on tefillin, okay, whether we call them tefillin or phylacteries on the arm and on the head. In the black box on the arm, in the tefillah on the arm, are the four passages that mention tefillin in the Torah. Okay, they are all written on one scroll. All right? In the black box on the head, they are written, same passages, but they are written on separate scrolls, 4 separate scrolls, which is why we have 4 separate compartments that are joined together as one in the head. And in each one of those is a separate scroll with one of those passages. When I put tefillin on in the morning, what do I put first? The head, representing my understanding of the Torah. And by the way, the reason they're separated is because that's what Torah understanding really is we're able to separate things one from another. We're able to separate what's good, what's evil, all of those things, okay? So do I put it on my head first so that I'll know and understand what I'm doing? Or do I put it on my arm first? The arm stands for what? Action, doing it. Always you put the arm tefillin on first.
Right.
Always. You wrap it to a certain point where it's wrapped on your hand. Then, only after it's in place, up to a certain point, then you take the head tefillin and put on your head. Okay? Then, after you put it on your head, then you come back. I wish I'd have brought tefillin so I could show you. And I didn't. I wasn't planning on doing this. This is off the cuff. Then you come back to your hand, unwrap, and then finish the wrap in the correct way. In other words, it's secured temporarily, and then after your head tefillin is in place, then you finish the proper wrap on your hand. Why do you do it that way? Why does the oral Torah set it up that way? And by the way, this is one of those things that comes from Sinai. Because that's the essence of what this Mishnah is. Anyone whose good deeds, whose action, whose keeping of the commandments comes before and is greater than his wisdom, his understanding, okay, then his understanding, his wisdom, and what he gets in Torah knowledge will endure. But if you put the head one on and say, I'm not going to do until I understand, then guess what? You'll never do either one.
Right.
Neither will you understand, neither will you do.
Amen.
If you have to say, okay, I'll do that when I, give me a reason. Why do I have to do that? My goodness, isn't it enough that Hashem said to do it? You do it and then you understand. And this is actually what the people of Israel said at the very first. They said, we will do, and then we will hear. We will understand it. We will understand why we do. Okay? Now, when I go to take the tefillin off, it's interesting. You undo the hand part, and then you wrap again around the middle in a temporary thing, so it's still on your arm. Then you take the head tefillin off, the tefillin shel rosh, wrap it, put it away, and then you remove the arm, which means even in the reversal, still, the head tefillin is never owned by itself. Okay? The arm tefillin is. The doing is. But the head tefillin is never owned by itself.
Beautiful.
It's absolutely beautiful and absolutely illustrative of this. And absolutely illustrative of how important it is to do. Okay. This Mishnah, he says, continues the theme that wisdom has to be built upon a foundation. In other words, in order to endure. What is wisdom? Chokmah. Wisdom refers to objective comprehension, he says, of the very essence of things. That, by the way, is why Kabbalah is called Hakmat Ha'emet, the wisdom of the truth. Okay? Because it's literally explaining to us what is the essence of things. How do things actually work? How do they actually run? And what is the essence of all things? Okay? So that's why it's called the wisdom of the truth. This is the same idea. However, he goes on and says, wisdom refers to objective comprehension of the very essence of things, but that knowledge and understanding, that is not the person himself. That's not who you are. It's an acquisition that you get. Okay? Just as a person's house is his, but his house is not him. We understand? We understand what he's saying? So wisdom is something that we acquire. Wisdom, he says, is a structure of concepts and relationships that we perceive and experience, much as a building is a structure of bricks and mortar that we can build and observe and see how it's built, understand exactly how the house is built, and then live in it. And like a building, it will fall apart if it is not set on a proper foundation. Indeed, he says it may be compared more precisely to a bridge. And by the way, that's Rabbi Basser. He's saying, this is my simile. I'm going to give you a different from what he got from the Maharal. Really, I think his way is very better here, much better here. He says, indeed it may be compared more precisely to a bridge that has two foundations. Here's the river, and it has a foundation on this side, and it has a foundation on this side. It has to set on two foundations, okay? He says, wisdom is the bridge that joins us to God. The fear of sin establishes a base of support on the side of the Creator, as we learned in Mishnah number 11. Anyone whose fear of sin precedes his wisdom will endure. And our Mishnah tells us that our good deeds following the mitzvot establishes a base of support within the human soul. I like his simile. I like his comparison. It's very, very good. So there's a double foundation here. Part of that foundation on the side of Hashem is the fear of Hashem, or the fear of sin. But in our soul, it's actually taking his advice, doing what we're supposed to do by keeping the mitzvot. Anyone whose good deeds exceed his wisdom will endure. He says the good deeds referred to in this Mishnah, in case anyone is having any doubts, are the mitzvot, okay, are the commandments. Actions that refine and purify the soul. When the soul has been adequately strengthened, he said, through mitzvot, it can then begin to bear the weight of wisdom. Interesting. But wisdom that exceeds the capacity of the soul won't endure. It can't endure. Now, he mentions something about the wisdom of the nations here. What he's going to talk about is secular wisdom, like, science and things like that. And he says, we know that there are people in every nation whose wisdom exceeds their good deeds, and yet their wisdom endures. He says it would appear to be contrary to this Mishnah. He said, in their case, wisdom continues because they have an outstanding propensity to wisdom. And he's quoting actually, or making a reference to, again, the Talmud, Nidah 16b, states that a person is born with a certain propensity, predisposition, okay, for wisdom, just like a person can be born with a certain predisposition for strength, for physical strength, or for even spiritual strength or anything. So people are born with certain predispositions. The key is when we talk about the wisdom of the nations, we're not talking about the wisdom of the truth that the rabbis are talking about here. They're not talking about the wisdom of the nations in science or medicine or law or whatever it is. They're talking about secular wisdom. In other words, they're talking about the wisdom of the truth. They're talking about sod level, secret level, Kabbalistic level of understanding of the Torah, the inner essence of the Torah. So if Rabbi Hanina is not talking about that, I'm not sure we even have to address the question, but let's finish what the Maharal says. So they have an outstanding propensity toward wisdom that prevails even without good deeds or the fear of sin. The Mishnah, however, is addressing people in general and not exceptions. Another approach to this question is to understand the term wisdom to mean the wisdom of Torah. Absolutely. That's what I was trying to say. That's what it means. Then the question doesn't even arise, because it's only the wisdom of the Torah, which is divine, which is coming from HaShem, that requires a spiritual foundation. Secular wisdom does not lead to HaShem, and hence does not need spiritual support. However, when we get into the wisdom of the Torah, we find out that even secular wisdom is still connected, because it also is coming from HaShem. And we shouldn't even have the thought for even 1 second that, those smart people over there in the science lab, they dreamed this up. No, it's coming directly from HaShem, without any doubt whatsoever. Okay? So I want to make that clear. I don't want anybody to misunderstand anything there. Okay. Mishnah number 13 is a very interesting Mishnah that I think we can finish this particular lesson with. Okay? Let's read it. This is still the same rabbi, Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, and he used to say, if the spirit of one's fellow is pleased with him, this is very interesting, then the spirit of the omnipresent, all right, is also pleased with him. But if the spirit of one's fellows is not pleased with him, the spirit of the omnipresent is not pleased with him. Now, number one, we're talking about one's fellows, okay? All right?
Yeah, I'm confused with the hymns. Whose hymns? Oh, I'm sorry.
What are you confused with, Tony?
No, nothing. Go ahead.
So now you're unconfused. No, you're still
I'm
confused. So tell me
I'm confused.
about what?
If one's fellow is pleased with him, the spirit of the omnipresent
Okay.
is pleased with
In
him.
this case, him is you.
Oh, okay.
If the spirit of your fellows are pleased with you, then the spirit of the omnipresent one is pleased with you.
Like if you guys are pleased with me?
That's the question. Who are your fellows?
Oh, well, I'm in
Okay.
trouble.
No, you're right. No, it's absolutely correct. It's like the people that are in this class,
Yeah.
the people who study Torah with you, the people who have the same level of understanding that you have in the Torah, and the same, you understand what I'm saying?
They're my fellows.
They're your fellows. Okay. Not some Chaim Yankel that you meet on the street and never saw before, who might get mad at you because you ran a stop sign.
Okay.
Okay? So what I'm telling you is if you accidentally run a stop sign tomorrow, God forbid, chas v'halila, okay, and someone shakes their fist at you and you say, oh, they're not pleased with me, so God must not be pleased with me. Well, maybe he's not because, no, I'm kidding you. That's not what this Mishnah is talking about, okay?
Right.
This Mishnah is talking about those people who are like in your study group, who are with you, same place, okay? But now you have to take that also to the point. If somebody that you know that's with you in the study of Torah and they're displeased with you, then you need to stop yourself and say, what's going on here? Okay, okay. That's the idea. Okay, let's read what, I love this Mishnah. I really love it. It's very good. Look how the Maharal points it out, what's going on here actually. He says, we learned in the preceding two Mishnayot that God fulfills our search for wisdom in response to, number one, our fear of sin, and in response to our good deeds, keeping the mitzvot, okay? The reason is that God is so closely bound to people that He responds to our initiative. Did we get that? That's unbelievable what he says. The reason is that God is so closely bound to people that He responds to our initiative. If we're upset with one of our fellows, He's upset. Our Mishnah continues, he says, with yet another consequence of this connection between man and God. When people are pleased with someone, God favors him as well. You see how important it is to actually go out of your way, to be pleased, and to not even be passive in that sense, to be pleased with the people, with your fellows. The reason that mankind, look at this, wow, look what he says. The reason that mankind is fully intertwined with God. What is this connection? Why should HaShem even be connected to us at all? He says, is that the human soul is derived from Him. Amen. Contrary to what most people think, who think that they came into existence at their birth or their conception or whenever that was, and don't realize their connection with HaShem from the very beginning. He said, this very fact gives the prophets in particular, the ability to interact with HaShem. And it is the principle, he says, behind what we have already studied in Pirkei Avot chapter 2 and Mishnah number 4, where it says, treat His will as if it were your own will, so that He will treat your will as if it were His will. The point being is that HaShem is totally connected to human beings. Amen. It's unfortunate that most of what we think of as the human race doesn't have a clue what it means to be a human being. Right. That's what's unfortunate. They're totally ruled by their animal soul, and that's not what it means to be a human being. And so that's unfortunate. But that's why we're doing what we're doing. Literally. That's the goal. You know, it's very interesting. The goal, the actual goal of the redemption. What did we have in Gan Eden? What did Adam and Chava have in Gan Eden? They were human beings. They were what human beings were supposed to be. Okay? That is the goal, actually, is to literally return to that place of what it means to be a human being. And it's an extremely interesting thing when you really and truly study it. Now, we have to be nice, and we don't go around calling people animals or anything like that. But to be truthful with you, actually people that we think of as human beings, if they are not living on the level of a human being, they also are not even living on the level of an animal. They're under them. Human beings, people, I'll put it that way since we're making human being a very specific term. People, if they are not living on the level of what it means to be a human being, connected to the Torah and connected to HaShem, and following His advice on how to live, they do things that even the animals will not do. Animals don't murder. I mean, they don't unnecessarily take life. Okay, they're not deceptive. They're not, even though they're motivated totally by a will to receive for themselves alone, they don't indulge that to the extent that they can be criminal. You understand what I'm trying to say? So people who are not on the level of a human being live even under, to be truthful with you, animals. I'll never forget that when I said one time, there was a suicide bomb on a bus in Israel, and I just shook my head and I said, behemoth, animals. That's what I said. I mean, and another Israeli corrected me, and he said, no. He said, not even an animal. He said, straps dynamite and goes and kills innocent people. He said, this is less than an animal.
Right.
He said, you give them a compliment when you called them an animal. Okay. All right. We have to end this one because we're just out of time. All right? Sorry. So shalom uvracha, peace and a blessing. And we'll start in Mishnah number 14 the next time we're together. Chapter 3, Mishnah number 14. Bye.
Thank you for joining us in our study. If you enjoyed this study and are interested in learning more from the Torah and the sages of Israel, then check us out on the internet at www.bfm101.com, or you may contact us toll-free at 1-800-639-0169. Our mailing address is Biblical Faith, P.O. Box 2, Abilene, Texas 79604. Until next time, we wish you shalom uvracha, peace and a blessing.